Hello everybody and welcome to episode 5 of Tennis with Joe. Just want to wish everybody a happy new year. Thank you everyone who supported me in 2018. Now I know I wasn't the most consistent with the videos in 2018, so my promise for 2019 is to be much more consistent with the videos. To help me with that, I've actually got one of my good friends, Hassan Saeed, on board. Now, Hassan Saeed is basically going to be a creative director for the videos. He's given me sort of a script on what to follow during the videos. Not a full-on script, but sort of structures. I'm still going to be giving my own opinion and everything like that. But a structure, because that's one thing I'm terrible at. Hassan actually volunteered to do that. So I do want to say a big thank you to Hassan for throwing his name into the hat. Hassan was going to be joining me in videos in the future, hopefully as well, and I just want to continue to build my brand and my YouTube videos. So thank you, Hassan, for volunteering for that. So in this video, I'm going to be previewing the men's draw of the Australian Open. I do apologise that I'm not going to be doing any discussion on the WTA draw. Unfortunately, I do not feel comfortable on discussing the WTA at this moment in time because I do not watch enough of it. So at the moment, the majority of my videos are going to be on the ATP. But maybe in the future, I may discuss the WTA as well. So without further ado, let's get into the main bulk of the video. So before I get into discussing the sort of draw of the Australian Open, I want to discuss the key moments which happened in the first 2 weeks of the season in the build-up to the Australian Open. So we had our events in the first week, Doha, Pune and Brisbane, that kicked off the season. In Doha, we saw Roberto Bautista Agut winning. He actually beat Novak Djokovic in the semi-finals on his way to the title, and now he is one of the select players to have won the Middle Eastern sort of double. He's won Dubai last year and obviously Doha this year. Bautista Agut beat Thomas Berdych in the final. Nice to see Berdych playing well himself after his injury troubles, and I'm interested to see what Bautista Agut, if he can build on his form. You know, he was very sort of aggressive in the tournament, in my opinion. He was sort of the aggressor against Novak and didn't give Novak sort of chance to get into the match. And if he can do that to players at the Australian Open, you know, he's going to be a dangerous player. So very interesting to see what he does at the Australian Open. In Pune, Kevin Anderson won. Not surprising really. Kevin continuing his good form from 2018. The only set he dropped was to Ivo Karlovic. You know, nice to see Kevin doing well. He's a great ambassador for the sport, and as he mentioned in an earlier interview, I think a reporter asked him if he was just a serve bot. My personal opinion, like Kevin said, you can't get to the top 10 just having a serve. You've got to have some other ground game, and you know that's something Kevin's really worked on, building his ground game and sort of working towards getting to the top level of the sport. So very impressed with Kevin, how he's doing. And in Brisbane, we had Kei Nishikori winning his first title in over, I believe it's over sort of 1.5, 2 years. He'd lost 9 finals in a row. Was able to win his 10th final, sort of first win in 10 finals. How to word that, but you know, it was nice to see him in the winner's circle again. He faced Daniil Medvedev, another in-form player, in the final, and they actually had a match in Tokyo, the ATP 500 there, in the final, where Medvedev sort of routine Nishikori in straight sets. There was a bit of nerves from Nishikori, so it did go 3 sets, but he did get over the line. I think it was sort of omnious really, because I know Medvedev was sort of erratic in that match, in my personal opinion. We then had the Hopman Cup as sort of the 4th event to supplement these events in the first week. It's not a real event, it is an exhibition. have one of the top players involved in Roger Federer. Roger, from what I saw, even though I am not sure how much you can gauge from a player's level in an exhibition tournament, he played very well. I don't believe he lost a match in the singles side of things. So, his game is sort of more up to par now compared to what we've seen at the end of last year. A bit of a sad one, really, because the Hopman Cup is potentially going to be gone now, so it's a bit of a sad one, but it is what it is. Stupid ATP Cup's going to be replacing it, but some good form shown from Roger during the Hopman Cup. We then had the two events the week before the Australian Open. Alex de Minaur coming through against a sort of decent opponent. He faced Gilles Simon in the semi-final, and then Andreas Seppi in the final. Both wily veterans who are sort of backboards on the baseline, in my opinion. So very good for de Minaur to get through both of those players, and the fact that he had to play both those matches in the same day is very impressive, in my personal opinion. And then we had Tennys Sandgren, very important week for him, because if he didn't perform in Auckland and he didn't perform in the Australian Open, he was on the cusp of dropping out of the top 100. But Sandgren, with the victory over Cameron Norrie in the Auckland final, sort of saves his top 100 for now. And even if he does lose in the first round of the Australian Open, he has got that sort of cushion, the 250 points from Auckland. So I'm guessing he will be very happy about that. So yeah, those are what happened in the first week, so the first couple of weeks leading up to the Australian Open. Some sort of surprising results, with Sandgren winning in Auckland and Roberto Bautista Agut winning in Doha. But then we had some sort of non-surprising results with Nishikori. I know he wasn't the top player in the Brisbane field, but he was one of the top players there, and also Kevin Anderson in Pune, rather unsurprisingly, winning that tournament. So before I get into the sort of main discussion of the Australian Open draw and sort of my previews and predictions from it, there is also a few things that have happened before the tournament, sort of key discussion points. The first main discussion point is, in my opinion, Rafael Nadal withdrawing from the Brisbane tournament for the second year in a row. Nadal becoming more and more unfortunate with injuries when it comes to sort of preparing for hardcore events. He's withdrawn from multiple of his last hardcore events. I'm not going to post the sort of tweet everyone posts every time he does withdraw from a hardcore event, but it's just unfortunate to come at this start of the season. I don't know if he's still struggling with the same thing that he was struggling with at the end of last season, which forced him to withdraw from the sort of last tournaments. My personal opinion, I do think he's going to be alright. I saw him play in the Sydney exhibition against Kyrgios, and then some doubles which he played with Raonic against Kyrgios and Millman. Seemed alright, did seem like he was restricting his movement a bit, but sometimes you do have to skip these sort of ATP level events and put your all into the Grand Slams. The only sort of thing I would say is Nadal does need to sort of try and start, if he doesn't feel comfortable playing at so many hardcore events, maybe adjust his schedule a bit. I know he likes to play, and I know he likes to sort of not let tournaments down, but he's withdrawing from so many. Fans are buying tickets to see him and not being able to see him. Tournament obviously sells a lot of tickets based on his name, and it's all a bit unfortunate for everyone involved. This is not anything against Nadal, but he is at the sort of level now where he has the exemptions, so he should be a bit more sort of selfish and say, look, I need to protect my body, and I'm not going to play such hardcore events. Like at the start of the season, I'll just play the Australian Open, maybe not play some 500s on hard courts during the year. He's at the level where he can afford to do that. In other news, we had the unfortunate news of Juan Martín del Potro withdrawing from the Australian Open. Juan Martin is still struggling from an injury that he was at the end of last season, which forced him out of the World Tour finals. My personal opinion, it's a very smart move from him to withdraw from the Australian Open. I am going to miss him playing the tournament, but given his sort of performances at the Australian Open, is not as successful, as the other tournaments, other Grand Slams. He seems to struggle with the heat and often humidity of the Australian Open, gets into some slugfest there, and never really had a sort of standout result at the Australian Open. So the good news is he is down to play Delray Beach in a few weeks' time after the Australian Open. So that's a good sign that he is ready to go. Just wanted to make sure that he is fresh and ready, because after the Australian Open, an important time of season coming up for him. He's got Acapulco points to defend, winner to defend at Acapulco, and also winner of Indian Wells points to defend. So he's got a lot of points to defend. So my opinion, it's a sort of wise decision to give his body a bit more rest and be ready for that important time of the year for him. So yeah, definitely a good decision for him to withdraw from the Australian Open, as unfortunate as it is. Now, a final bit of news going into the first Grand Slam of the year is the fact that the Australian Open has decided to introduce a tie-break at 6 games all in the final set. It won't be a regular tie-break, it will actually be a super tie-break to 10 points, a format we most commonly have come to know in doubles. Previously, the Australian Open was a Grand Slam where they played first to 2 games clear if they reached 6 all in the final set. So now Roland Garros is the only remaining slam to be doing so, with Wimbledon also introducing a tie-break rule about a different one for their tournament starting later this year. I have to say I'm a bit disappointed in that. I can see the reasons behind why they've done it. It's better for player safety and protection, but it will sort of starve us of some of the epics that we've seen go past the 6-all mark. I think back into 2013, the epic between Novak Djokovic and Stan Wawrinka at the Australian Open. I think that's one of the most memorable matches where we were treated to such amazing tennis after the 6-all, and then obviously the final year before that as well between Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. So it's going to starve us a bit of the epic matches. I can see in a way why they've done it, but in my personal opinion, it's something they should have just kept as it is, because it doesn't happen very often. Majority of matches that go into a 5th set usually end with someone winning the set 6-4 or 6-3, whatever. It's very rare that they get to 6 games all and they have to continue. So it is one thing I am going to miss, but I can see the sort of reasons why the Australian Open has made the decision to do so, player protection being the main reason. Okay, finally moving on to discussing the draw of the Australian Open. I'm just going to be discussing some of the key points, my sort of opinions on who's got the best draw and who I think is going to sort of come through the sections. I'm not going to give my prediction as to who's going to win, I don't think, because I hate giving predictions and then sort of being made to look like a fool. So I'll probably just go to the quarterfinals in terms of the predictions to see who I believe is going to get through those sort of sections. So in my personal opinion, the player that's sort of got the most difficult draw is out of the top players is Novak Djokovic. He's been given an easy first round. He's going to face a qualifier, and the qualifier is Mitchell Kruger of the United States. Kruger sort of honing his game on the challenger circuit and college tennis, I believe. So even though he's come through qualifying, I don't think he's going to be much of a test to Novak. This is where it gets difficult in the sort of second and third rounds. Second round is either going to be Martin Klizan or Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Both big hitters on their day, and either one of them, if they have a sort of performance where they redline the game, both are capable of beating Novak. But if Novak does bring his sort of top game, he should get through. But it's still going to be sort of a tough ask for both against either of those opponents, especially sort of Tsonga. Maybe he's motivated because he did face 11 years ago in the 2008 final, and maybe Tsonga wants to sort of get revenge. But Novak should get through, but I still think it's a difficult match. And then from there, he's got Denis Shapovalov in round 3, David Goffin in round 4, top 20 player, Nishikori in the semi-finals potentially, and Alex Zverev or Borna Coric semi-final in my personal opinion, before facing Nadal or Federer in the final. So if he gets through his matches, I think that's sort of a tough road to the title. I also think Federer's got a pretty difficult road. I sort of did take the piss a bit on Twitter saying he'd got another cakewalk, but from sort of round 3 onwards, he does have some dangerous opponents projected. And I say projected because draws often don't pan out the way they should pan out, but he has got some tough opponents in his way. Potential third round with Gael Monfils, Stefanos Tsitsipas or Nikoloz Basilashvili in the 4th round. I will say why I believe that in a moment. And then quarterfinalist potentially Karen Khachanov, and then the semi-final Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. So again, tough for Federer. In my opinion, the sort of out of the big 3 guys that I see as contenders in this slam, Nadal's definitely got the easiest draw. James Duckworth round 1. No disrespect to these players, obviously. James Duckworth round 1, Matthew Ebden round 2, Alex de Minaur, who may potentially test Rafa in round 3, and then Kyle Edmund potentially, but that might not happen. And again, I'll say why in a moment. Kevin Anderson quarterfinal. So sort of up until the quarterfinal stage for Nadal, in my personal opinion, it's pretty plain sailing. Apart from maybe Alex de Minaur, if he sort of plays the way he has done in Sydney. The only thing is when he last faced Rafa in a Grand Slam, he got annihilated. So just one of those, I'm not sure that he's at the sort of level yet where if Rafa is in sort of good health, good form, that he can test, but you never know. As I did mention earlier in the video, Nadal has been struggling with injuries, so maybe sort of fortunate for him to land in the section with Nadal rather than the section with the quarter of Federer. So maybe he's sort of happy about that he gets a chance to face Nadal if he gets through on home soil. So obviously I've mentioned the sort of big threat in the top names in Djokovic, Nadal and Federer, but we can also not forget the recent World Tour Finals winner Alexander Zverev, who's going to be the 4th seed in this Grand Slam. I definitely have him down as one of the favourites alongside Djokovic, Nadal and Federer. Reason why I'm not mentioning him bunched in with those 3 is because his Grand Slam form is still sort of suspect in my personal opinion, and there is talk that he did injure himself before the Australian Open, one being a thigh injury, and then there's a video of him injuring his thigh. So I'm a bit tentative to say that he's definitely going to come through his quarter. His quarter has a lot of tough names in it. It's got Stan Wawrinka, Ernst Gulbis, Nick Kyrgios, Milos Raonic in a really insane section. Stan's facing Gulbis in the first round and Raonic is facing Nick in the first round. So that sort of section, they could face, one of those guys could face Zverev in the 4th round. So in the 4th round, yes, they could face Zverev in the 4th round. Sorry, I just had to double check that, make sure that was correct. I've got the draw printed off in front of me, but the Australian Open's sort of printable draw is terrible. So sort that out next time, please. It'd be very appreciated. But he's also got in his sort of quarter. Let me just have a look if there's any other names. Borna Coric is in the sort of bottom half of the quarter, so that could be another name that gets through that quarter. So you never know with Zverev. If he's in good health and if he's motivated, he is the one that I'd look to get through that part of the sort of quarter. But he could be one that is facing an upset. So it's a bit of a toss-up, with Zverev. We've also got the dark horses. Now, I am again going to look at that section. You've got that section I discussed before that's got Stan Wawrinka facing Gulbis in the first round and Milos Raonic facing Nick Kyrgios. Now, after the second round, there's only going to be one of those guys left. But if you're getting through that sort of, did I say after the second? After the third round, there's only going to be one of those guys. Second round. My apologies. Sorry, I couldn't do this video without a mistake, could I? But here we go. After the second round, there's only going to be one of those guys left because they're facing each other in the first round. Gulbis Wawrinka, and then Raonic Kyrgios, and then the winner of each match faces off in the second round. So it's a very, very tough one. But one of those guys, if you're getting through that sort of dangerous section in the third round, they're scheduled to face. Just bear me a second. Again, it's something I need to check. It shows my lack of preparation. So in the third round, they're likely going to face Hyun Chung, Bradley Klein, Sam Querrey, or Pierre-Hugues Herbert. So again, those sort of players are dangerous as well, but I would probably say that the sort of one you're looking for to come through that sort of section into the fourth round to face Zverev, probably going to be one of those guys in that sort of little section with Gulbis, Wawrinka, Raonic and Kyrgios, and it's going to be tough for Zverev in the fourth round, and these are going to be the dark horses in that particular section. Now, we've also got a dark horse I'm going to mention in that quarter, sort of at the bottom, and I've already mentioned Borna Coric as the potential one. He's in the sort of bottom half of the quarter, potentially Benoit Paire as well. He's got to face Dominic Thiem in the first round, but you never know with Paire. If he's on his game, Thiem could be on upset alert. You never know with Thiem what his hard-court game is going to be like. I mentioned his sort of lack of results on a hard court in the past. Paire could make a run because it's a very sort of nice little section for him, in my opinion. Is that I know he had a bit of a rough one in Auckland because he had to play after only arriving from Pune a few days earlier, like 1 day earlier, but he played well in Pune, making the semi-final or the semi-final or the quarter-final, either one. Played well there, so again he could be a dark horse. And looking on the sort of other side of the draw, I don't see any real dark horses in Novak's quarter. If you have a look at the second half of the draw, even on the second half of the draw he's playing first, you've got the quarter with Marin Cilic in, also involves Stefanos Tsitsipas, as well as Nicolas Basilashvili, which I'm going to mention why I mentioned his name in a moment. Looking at Marin Cilic's section, it is a very tough section for him to sort of get through to the third round. He's got to get past home favourite Bernard Tomic, and I know Tomic has sort of been an on and off season last year. He did pick up his first title last year, so he's starting to show the tennis that he is capable of. I do think Cilic will be a bit too solid for that match, but you never know with Bernie involved, what he brings in his home country, and then it doesn't get any easier from there, in my opinion. His second round opponent would be it'd probably most likely be Andre Rublev, who can test the top players, in my opinion, if he brings his A game. And then in the third round, Fernando Verdasco. So there's a lot of floaters in that section that could cause some trouble to Cilic. He's defending finalist points, so you never know. Marin may be upset in that particular sort of section of his quarter. And then looking in the other section of the quarter, the bottom half of the quarter, you have that match that I've mentioned multiple times, potential a third round meeting between Stefanos Tsitsipas and Nicolas Basilashvili. That's going to be a really tough one for Tsitsipas. Basilashvili has been playing great tennis last season, as well as Tsitsipas, and Basilashvili was actually the only player to win 2 ATP 500s last season. So, he's showing he's a capable player. Tsitsipas still maybe a bit more inexperienced compared to Basilashvili, who's really sort of come into fruition with the guidance of Jan de Witt, a great coach. And it'll definitely be a test for Stefanos to see if he can get through that. And that will be the section that has Roger Federer in as the fourth round opponent. So it's not set in stone that Roger will face Stefanos in round 4. It may well be Basilashvili. So keep an eye on that section, because there could be a few interesting things happening in that section of the third quarter. Now, sticking with that third quarter, many of you may have known and seen the announcement from Andy Murray about his imminent retirement. At the end of Wimbledon this year. Well, hopefully he can get far. But Murray has decided to hang up his racket, unfortunately, because he's still struggling with his hip injury. He practiced in the Australian Open, a practice set against Novak Djokovic, and he sort of knew from there that his level was not up to what he used to be, and he was just feeling too much pain in the practice session. He said that to the media that he used to be, even though he lost a lot of times to Novak, he felt that he was able to compete with him much more closer than what he did in this practice session. So it's very sad news to hear about the Murray retirement announcement, and he did mention that the Australian Open may be his last Grand Slam, which is sort of devastating news as someone who's followed the sport in Britain. Murray has been one of the main reasons as to why I started watching tennis, as I'm sure it is for many people in Britain. And to see Andy having to bow out of the sport, he did say that this could be his last match. He's going to be facing the man who won Doha just a few weeks ago, Roberto Bautista Agut. And Agut is I'm just checking what seed he is. Agut is the 22nd seed, and his sort of game style is one that will test Andy a lot. He's the kind of player who notices these sort of things, is very solid from the back of the court, and for a fact that he's going to be exposing Andy's movement and sort of running him from side to side with the bad hip that Andy has. And unfortunately, I just can't see Andy winning that match. So I just hope he does manage to show flashes of his brilliance, and I hope he doesn't decide after this particular match, I've got to retire, because there is still players that Andy can beat. If he gets a fortunate draw, there is players out there that he can beat. He beat James Duckworth in Brisbane. He's won matches last season as well when he was still in pain with the hip. So you just hope it isn't sort of the end of the road for him. And looking forward, you hope he can make Wimbledon. And we've got the sort of third quarter, sort of headlined by Rafael Nadal and Kevin Anderson. Looking through that, there's only sort of a few talking points I can see from that particular side, or that particular quarter of the draw. You've got Nadal, I've mentioned before, potentially facing de Minaur, and the only thing is this sort of quarter, this half of the draw does start on Monday. So for de Minaur, who won Sydney on Saturday playing 2 matches, he faces Pedro Sousa of Portugal in the first round. And whilst I don't think he will face any struggles in that round, will he be 2 cups by the time he faces Nadal? You never know. So that's one sort of edging towards, not saying it's going to be an upset, because it's just too sort of bold to predict that with de Minaur having to play on the Monday after only just winning the tournament on Saturday. Going from Sydney to Melbourne. Looking again further at this part of the draw, Anderson's in the top section of it. Doesn't really seem to mean Isner and Dimitrov are also in that section, but neither of them have really impressed me recently. So I can't see either of them troubling Anderson. I think Anderson will handily get through his section, and I also think that Nadal will handily get through his section if he is in good health. One match to look out for that one on upset alert is Kyle Edmund against Thomas Berdych. Thomas has played some great tennis in Doha, reaching the final, back 6 months or whatever it was after injury, playing some great tennis again. He seems motivated. Rather unfortunate of him to get an injury at that time. I remember seeing him at a sort of a fan zone interview in Rotterdam last season, where he felt like he was fresh again and he was focusing and he wanted to have more success in his career. Very unfortunate to get injured again. He's smartly took the sort of 6 or so months to build his game up again. It looks like he's a bit more skinnier, a bit more easier for movement around the court. He's got a big frame, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do. And I do see him beating Kyle Edmund. And we've also got Hyun Chung. I need to find where Mr. Chung is in the draw. Just bear with me a second. This is unprepared. So Hyun Chung is in the second quarter. He faces Bradley Klan in the first round, and potentially Sam Querrey or Pierre-Hugues Herbert in the second round. So the first round meeting with Klan, it's not an easy one. I wouldn't be surprised if both of last year's semi-finalists in Hyun Chung and Edmund were to both lose either in the first round or very early in the draw, because Chung seems a bit sort of lately, and Edmund, as I mentioned in the Berdych match, he is struggling a bit with injury issues. Even though he has got to practice with Nadal and Federer, it's tough to judge what his level and fitness will be off that practice session. One more sort of upset I potentially see happening is, I don't know if you can call it an upset, you've got Yoshito Nishioka facing Tennis Sangren, the Auckland winner in the first round. Nishioka, a very solid player himself. Sangren may be tired from his exploits in Auckland. Let me just check which half of the draw he is in. Sorry about this, guys. Again, terribly unprepared. These draws are terrible from the Australian Open. But either way, he's playing on a Saturday. Whether he's playing on Monday or Tuesday, it's not optimum rest going from another city. So again, that could be another upset. So that's just my discussion of the draw and sort of the upsets and the difficulty I see for some of the players who I see as dark horses. I'm going to make a quick prediction on who I see getting through each quarter. So the first quarter, reaching the quarterfinals. Sorry, I'm not going to do who I see making the semi-finals, but I will think I'm going to get through each sort of section of the quarter. So the first quarter, I see Novak Djokovic and Kei Nishikori getting through that quarter, both in form at the moment, and I don't see any upsets happening in that part of the draw. Second quarter, again, I'm going to be a bit boring. Alex Zverev against Borna Koric in that particular quarter final, and then sort of in the third quarter is where I've actually got a surprise down. I actually see Fernando Verdasco getting through that first quarter. Don't know why, just a hunch I have. It may not sort of pay off, but got to make these predictions every so often, haven't you? Federer will get through. I think he may get tested by Tsitsipas or Basilashvili, but I think he's playing decent tennis enough to make the quarter final. Then in the bottom quarter, Kevin Anderson and Rafael Nadal. Again, that's the sort of quarter where I don't see many big upsets happening. So I may be wrong. I probably am going to be wrong. That's just what I think is going to happen based on players' recent forms and everything like that. But that's just my personal opinion, and that's what my video is about, giving my personal opinion. Happy to hear your opinions below. I've given you a thumbs down there. Make sure you give a thumbs up on this video. I am going to close up now. I want to thank everybody for watching. Do give your opinions on what you think is going to happen during the Australian Open. We are literally at the time of finishing recording this video. It's probably going to be another hour before it's up, so we're literally 2 hours from the Australian Open to start. So you've got my preview just before it starts, and maybe time that perfectly. But yeah, I'm going to wrap up here. Give your opinions, give your opinions on the first Grand Slam of the year in the comments box below. If there is something you agree with me on, or if there's something you disagree with me on, definitely feel free to leave your comments below. Once again, thank you for watching my videos. I am going to be bringing out videos as much as possible this year. I'm definitely delighted to have Hassan on board helping me out with those videos. Thank you very much, and I will see you in episode 6.